Welcome back to Hoosier Homes and Hustles. I'm Jessica Williams.
And I'm Stacy Preston, and we're both realtors with eXp Realty. If you're passionate about real estate, local market trends, and the future of housing, you're in the right place.
And today we're diving into all things new construction, which is a key player in today's inventory in our local market.
That's right. New construction homes currently make up around 30% of total home sales, both nationally and here in Indianapolis. If you're looking for a home, you're definitely going to come across some new construction homes, which is why we thought this episode was important to do. In 2024, the Builders Association of Greater Indianapolis reported a 27% increase in building permits compared to 2023, so it's definitely on the rise. As of the date of this recording, there were around 1,000 new construction homes listed in our local MLS, with a total of about 6,000 homes, so that's roughly about 18 to 20% of our inventory. With most builders have spec homes that aren't even listed. So there's probably more than 1,000 right now.
So for today's show, let's say I'm the buyer considering new construction.
Okay.
Can you give me some pros and cons of buying a new construction home?
Sure. Well, let's start with the pros. One thing I always tell my buyers, it's obvious. It's a new house. That's exciting, right? New carpet, new paint, nothing you have to fix. But compared to an existing home, you don't have like toenails in the carpet, hair in the drains, just other sellers' gunk, right?
You're the first one in there. It's going to be
really,
your toenails.
Like exciting to have a new house. So that's obviously the first pro. I think one of the biggest pros right now is the builders are offering financing incentives and just incentives to help move their inventory. And sometimes it's more than what you could get from an existing seller. So we're seeing a lot of rate buy downs. We're seeing things like 4.9% interest rates for fixed for 30 years.
Definitely appealing as a buyer, given affordability.
Closing cost assistance. And if they're buying your rate down, that actually allows you a higher budget. So those are some great incentives if you have new construction as a goal of yours. One thing that's nice about new construction, especially for like first-time buyers or someone that's never owned a home, is that they come with a warranty and you're really not going to have to fix anything for quite some time because everything is new. Your HVAC is new, your water softener is new. And if you have an issue, the builders, they give you their vendors a list of who to call if you have issues with any of those items. So if you've not owned a home and you're not super comfortable fixing things, it's really nice to just roll into one of those new construction homes and have the builder deal with it.
Or if you don't have just a great reserve set aside for anything that might come up if you were buying a pre-existing home.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And then one other thing is that with it being new, it's up to the highest like energy codes or whatever. So your utility costs are typically a little bit lower because the house is more energy efficient. You've got new windows, you've got new doors, you've got the insulation that's better than the insulation they were using 30 years ago, or they're putting more of it in. So those kind of costs you don't maybe even factor in, but typically you're going to have a better utility cost than an older home.
I'll take savings wherever I can get it.
Absolutely.
So there's just some great pros that you just listed, but let's shift it over to the con side. What are we looking at for cons of buying new construction?
Okay, so this isn't all the time, but you may have to wait longer to get into the home, depending on if you're building it yourself or buying one that's already ready to go. The builders call those spec homes. So you may not be able to get in like within 2 weeks or 30 days. So that's one consideration.
So if you're impatient, it's probably not for you.
Yeah. And if you're building from with the builder from scratch, that's probably 9 months. That's probably a good average. However, like I said, in our MLS, we have 1,000 homes in the inventory that are probably able to close within 60 days, I would guess. So sometimes it's just a little bit of a wait. One of the biggest cons I don't think people consider is you don't really know what the neighborhood is actually going to turn out looking like, right?
That's a great point.
Depending on how far into the neighborhood they built. And just some examples of that, like sometimes a builder, they may go out of business and sell off their remaining lots to a different builder. So the elevations on the home could change. It may be different styles of homes that you just really don't know.
Maybe it's not custom anymore. Right. Now it's more tract
There's
home.
some neighborhoods where it's like been a custom builder and then they sell to a production builder. And so you've got a mix of like custom versus production. So that is a big risk you take. You don't know what the neighborhood's going to look like. And not only just with the builder, but also things like your neighbors. So is your neighbor next door going to have 10 cars? Is your neighbor next door going to have a dog that barks constantly? Like those things can change, obviously, but you usually have a better idea of that when you're buying an existing home, of like what it looks like. And then also, if you're building new and you've got this great view or something that's really cool about the property, is there going to be another home that's going to go in and block that view, take that away? So those are things to consider.
Or it might seem like you have this vast backyard, and then all of a sudden there's all these homes that are creeping up quite quickly.
It's funny how it does look huge with nothing on it, but when they start putting those homes in, like even sometimes if the house going in next to you is a 2-story versus a ranch takes so much more space on the lot that it can change how your lot looks as far as the size of it. So those are things that, again, depending on where you are in that build out with that neighborhood, that you just might not know. Additional expenses for things like blinds, fencing, decks, patios, appliances. So those things sometimes are not standard with new construction. I'll start with appliances. A lot of builders will include like the stove, the dishwasher, but not a refrigerator and not a washer and dryer. So those are things you're going to have to buy before you move in. Most people want some kind of window treatment. So,
ideally.
I can tell you, we've bought a couple of new construction homes and it's shocking what it costs to put blinds in. And also my husband would account that he hates hanging them. That's no fun. So I guess you could pay someone to do that, but that's
even more money on top of how much the material itself is.
So, I mean, that's something you're going to need to budget for. If you have pets or kids and you'd like a fence, that's several $1,000s. Most builders don't include a big patio. That could be an add-on, but a lot of people want to do something else with the backyard after they buy it from the builder. So things like a nice deck or patio or outdoor living spaces are usually not going to come with a new construction home. And most people want to do additional landscaping too. You might get like the yard, you'll get grass or sod and then like 5 bushes. So most people want to do something extra. So there's definitely some additional expenses there. One thing that is kind of annoying when you move into a new home, if it's in a construction zone, is just dealing with the construction noise and dirt and nails in your tires.
A baby or a baby on the way and sleep.
Lots of traffic in and out of the neighborhood, big vehicles. A lot of the production neighborhoods are actually pretty good of like building a section and then moving on. So like once all those people move in, they move the construction like to another area or down the street further. But not all of them do that. So just know that for the next year or two, you're probably going to have to deal with the construction mess. And then if you have kids or pets and you close in like the winter, they can't put your grass in. So you may have a muddy yard for several months before your landscaping can get put in. So that's something to think about, at least in our market where it's winter and cold. And
we truly get all 4 seasons.
We do. So one other thing to think about with new construction is I would not recommend it if you're going to be staying in that home really like 2 to 3 years or less. It's going to be hard for you to resell that and compete with the builder. You should ask the builder how long they anticipate being in that subdivision and building. And some neighborhoods are smaller, some are massive, and they have like 10 sections. So if you have to turn around and sell 2 years into it and the builder still has their model home and they're offering all those incentives, that could be an issue. So definitely think of it from a resale perspective. Are you going to have to compete with that builder? Will you be able to get your money out of this house?
Because back to your initial point, the seller or the builder is still going to be able to offer those incentives to a new buyer, which you're probably not going to be able to offer.
Exactly. My husband and I had an example. I shared it in a previous episode where we had a house that took a year to sell, and that's why. They were still building in that neighborhood, and what the builder did is they started offering upgrades that our house didn't have. So granite was included and a bigger patio and upgraded flooring. And so people would go through ours with the builder grade carpet and the laminate counters and not want to buy our house. So that was the reason that took so long to sell. So definitely consider that. Probably if you're doing new construction, I would say you want to be there at least 5 years or at least until construction's done. So, and then in general, just the price per square foot of a brand new home is generally higher. So if square footage is something that's important to you, you could probably get a better price on an existing home versus new construction. So that's something to think about too.
Thank you for highlighting those cons as well.
Yeah.
So, what about some tips for buyers? Do we need a realtor? Can I just go in and buy with the builder?
I think that's one thing that buyers don't realize is that in the new neighborhoods, they often have a model home with a sales rep, and you can actually bring a realtor to those meetings and work with your realtor. If you're under contract with a realtor with a buyer's agency agreement, a builder can represent you through the sale of new construction. And it's really important because the sales rep is there working for the builder. At the end of the day, they're getting paid by the builder to be there, where a realtor is there for your best interest. And we also do this more than, once in every 10 years. So we know the builders, we know what they offer, and we can help navigate you to maybe the right builder for you. But I think the biggest thing about having a realtor is just having someone on your side. And a lot of times people just think, well, there's a model home, I'm going to walk right in and just walk through it. If you want to work with a realtor, be careful doing that. Be sure to tell the salesperson that you are working with an agent, because some of them will not let your realtor be part of the transaction if they think you found that on your own without your realtor. So most realtors will explain that to you. And if new construction's in your search, they're going to bring that up. But just know that you can absolutely use your realtor. You don't have to feel like that's not something you should do. I also recommend, if you are interested in new construction, shopping multiple builders and at least meeting with two, especially if you're going to go through the whole build process. It's really kind of cool to see what those builders are offering as a standard feature versus what's an upgrade. Some of them include everything. Some of them charge you for every last outlet and light bulb. So I think it's cool to see how that's priced out. I would say spec homes, which are the ones they've got built and completed already, you're going to probably have more room to negotiate on those. However, you can't make changes. Even if, let's say it's still like in construction, the permits are already done. So they can't like move a wall or bump out a patio or anything like that because it's already permitted. So if it's important to you to customize, you're probably going to look at doing the whole build process. But if you're okay with just shopping their inventory, you're probably going to get a better deal buying something they've got ready to go.
Well, even on the new, if they're wanting to build the ground up custom, aren't there still even limitations to how custom you can get? There's still
it totally depends on the builder. Some builders don't make any changes. Some are like a semi-custom, and they'll allow you to, like, I've had clients take out a closet and make it a mudroom, or maybe instead of a half wall that's standard, like some builders put a half wall between like a dining room and a living room, they'll take that out. But yeah, major modifications probably you're not going to get with a production builder. So the last and probably biggest tip I have is inspections. You definitely want to do home inspections. And again, this is where your realtor can help you through this process. The builder's going to reference inspections they have. These are with the city, and they have to do these to make sure that they're meeting all the requirements locally. But we work with independent inspectors. And again, they don't work for the builder. They're there for you just to make sure that everything is what it needs to be. It's a new home, so there's some certain expectations that it should be pretty much perfect, right? So
I think that's a big misconception for folks. They assume it's done and done right.
Yeah,
and that's not necessarily the case. With how quickly that they're building these homes, things can get overlooked.
Absolutely.
So it's so important to have these.
So there's two inspections actually that we do in new construction. One is pre-drywall. So this is when your plumbing and your electrical are done, but the drywall's not up. So you can see where everything's at, and the inspector can really get a good look at things. And I actually tell my clients to go in and take pictures or videos of all of that, because that's actually something good to know where a pipe is behind the wall. I've hung a picture before and punctured a water line. So I never would have thought of that.
Lessons learned.
Right. So knowing where those things are just for when you're hanging pictures, decorating, adding on, it's a good thing to have as part of your records. But the pre-drywall inspection, it doesn't cost as much as a full inspection, but it just kind of gives you some peace of mind that there's not going to be something behind the walls creating an issue that you find out about 5 years later, right? And then in the final inspection, if you use the same inspection company, they'll reference that pre-drywall inspection and make sure those items were corrected. The final inspection, clients often think they can skip it because the builder typically does like a quality walkthrough or a punch list meeting with the buyer. But again, the quality person works for the builder, right? So I don't think it hurts to have two sets of eyes looking at that. And most of the time, we'll do the final external inspection before that builder's quality meeting and come to that meeting with the list from our inspector. These are the items we have. That quality inspector is usually like, sure, we'll get that fixed. And then that stuff gets taken care of before closing. But I can tell you, we've seen things like broken doors. I had a client get new garage doors before closing because a construction crew had pulled into the garage with like their ladders on top and like totally bent it. And it didn't come up on the builder's quality check. Roofing issues. If they're accessing the roof, the construction workers at a certain point, it can damage the shingles. Like you see everything. You would think it's a new home, but there's absolutely a reason to have an inspection. So I would definitely spend the money and do that.
I would agree with that. Again, even coming from somebody frugal, definitely worth
Right.
it in the long run. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing those tips from the buy side. So let's flip the script and really kind of hone in on the seller side. Why should sellers be aware of new constructions going on in the area?
So, like I said, buyers are going to be seeing new construction depending on the price point. So, if you're selling in a price point where you can go and buy a new home down the street, you need to care about this. And it could cause some challenges in selling your home because, to our points earlier, there's some benefits with buying a new house, right? Financing incentives, it's new, it's fresh, it's updated. You don't have a lot to do when you move in as far as like fixing things. So I usually tell my sellers, especially if they've been in their home for a while, go walk through one of these model homes and just kind of see what the buyers are seeing. And then can you replicate any of that within your house? Mainly like decluttering. If you've got crazy paint colors, kind of neutralizing some of that. If you have really dirty carpet, that's an easy fix.
Professional carpet
Get it
cleaning.
cleaned or replaced. It's worth it in the end if you're competing with that. Because why would someone buy your house when they can walk across the street and get all of those things new? Again, that's not in every price point. So ask your agent if those are improvements you might need to make. But you definitely need to be aware of that. Do you have something that's differentiating you from new construction? So like we said earlier, the backyards. Do you have a pool? Do you have an awesome patio or deck? Fire pit, outdoor kitchen, custom built-ins in your house? Things like that on a new home, they're pretty basic. They don't have a lot of those extra upgrades. So if you do, that's something you're going to want to really highlight in your listing. And if it's appropriate, again, if you're competing with those listings, you may want to offer similar incentives that the builder's offering, whether it's some concessions to buy down the buyer's rate or help with their closing costs where that's attractive, or even offering a home warranty. That's something you can do that helps you compete with new construction.
Gives buyers that peace of mind.
Yeah. But I mean, sellers definitely need to be aware of that if there's a lot of inventory, at least in Indianapolis, in our area. It's something to consider, probably, like I said, in certain price points.
Well, thanks for that information, Stacy. It was extremely helpful, I'm sure, for any buyers and sellers out there considering new construction or considering selling near some new construction.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that's it for our episode today of Hoosier Homes and Hustles. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Let's hustle smarter together.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.